services. BART has been involved in nutrition, ingredient procurement, feed manufacturing, R&D activities, and such. He has a pretty lengthy description of his bio, so I'll let you go through that yourself. And together with BART, we have as an additional speaker that will be participating in the same presentation, Mr. John Ostis. John is the president of Blue Spring Communications, an agricultural marketing strategy agricultural marketing strategy company based in St. Louis. His background includes all aspects of agricultural marketing, communications, brand strategy, and sustainability strategy. As the lead for the high yield and quality program sponsored by the Illinois Soybean Association, John works with farmers, seed companies, and supply chain leaders to identify and advance soybean varieties with maximum value to oil and livestock customers. With that, it's my pleasure to invite both gentlemen up here to share with us their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for that warm welcome. Appreciate it. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. We're here to talk about ensuring maximum U.S. soybean value, all the way from the seed that the farmers that you talked with earlier today produce, all the way through the feed that you use in your feeding operations. The High-Q program is an abbreviation. It's short for high yield plus quality. And what that means is we want to take the high yield that the producers want and mix it with the high quality that end users want. In doing so, we found a new way to make billions of dollars of livestock feed value visible by focusing in a new way on the specific high-value amino acids profiles that are available today in today's U.S. soybeans. We want to increase the livestock feed value by delivering maximum quality U.S. soybeans as shown through a very unbiased source, and that's ration balancing software that is used by nutritionists. We want to increase the feed efficiency with high-value soybeans that have specific, excellent amino acid profiles. And in doing this, our key goal, one of the key reasons that the High-Q program was formed, was a new way to motivate seed company marketing departments and breeders to focus on specific varieties of soybeans that have superior amino acid profiles that provide superior end user value, because ultimately most soybeans are used for livestock feed, and we want to make sure that the customers of United States soybeans get the absolute best product they can. And in this program, we've made a few discoveries that help us overcome some significant challenges that we have in the marketplace today. And in doing so, we have some new opportunities that we're very excited and pleased to share with you today. One of the first challenges that we have is a fundamental disconnect in the way soybeans are produced and used at the end user level. The main thing that farmers want is yield. That's why they produce soybeans. They want as many bushels per acre as possible. However, the livestock nutritionists that formulate the soybeans use the feed that base them solely on amino acid values. So there's a bit of a disconnect that starts right there. Now, the other way that there's a disconnect is that the conversation about soybean protein and soybean value happens at the macro level. It happens after all the soybeans have mixed together from farmers throughout the United States. Then soybeans are priced based on protein. So it's kind of ironic that farmers are producing yield and thinking only about yield, but the only reason that those soybean yields have value at all is the amino acids and the oils that are in the soybeans. So to look at this conversation a little bit differently, we went all the way down to the sample level, and we measured the individual feed values of nearly 40,000 samples of soybeans from 4 years of harvest data from 2 different programs. And this gave us some new insights about value that we're looking forward to sharing with you today, and also a way to apply that value in individual feed operations as well. What we discovered is that there are billions of dollars of hidden value sitting in the marketplace today that's uncaptured. And we have an idea for a new opportunity to capture that value that we're sharing today. So this is all based on farmer samples from throughout the United States. You can see on the map here, these are just some of the locations from these studies. One of the key studies that we worked with is the U.S. Soybean Export Council farmer samples from 4 years of data. You can see in this case there are about 1,800 samples from throughout the United States. It's pretty representational of soybean production areas in this country. And you can also see in your thumb drives how many samples were from each state. In addition to this data, we also have a separate data source from the United Soybean Board that consists of thousands of samples from replicated plots that get us down to the variety level from individual seed companies. And with this data, we've been able to take a new look at soybean value that we're looking forward to sharing. What we did was we pulled together an international science team to look at this data in a new way. It included scientists from the United Soybean Board, from consultants from the organization that sponsors our work, the Illinois Soybean Association. We have an independent nutritionist here, Dr. Bart Ward, who will speak with you today. We also have agronomists and statisticians from the University of Wisconsin. We have international feed nutritionists through Schotthorst out of the Netherlands, which is a U.S. Soybean Export Council contractor. So we pulled together people from different areas of the soybean industry to look at this data in a new way. Dr. Borg, if you could talk a little bit about amino acids.
Thank you, John, and pleased to be here today to tell you about this information project that we've been working on. And John invited me into here a little over a year ago. As a nutritionist, much of my job is to sort through the values of different ingredients. And so, as John and the Illinois Soybean Board came to me and asked if I could help differentiate between soybean samples. It was a job that I do every day in trying to evaluate, just as Caleb was talking about DDGS samples, knowing the nutrient content, feeding that information into diet formulation software is the easy job or easy work really for a nutritionist. So again, I just want to touch a little bit here. Whoops. Back here. Want to spend some time, hopefully, if there's nutritionists in the crowd. I'm not trying to talk down to you, but I know that we've got a wide range of people here. So I'm going to start off just by talking about essential amino acids, and because that really is the core of the program that we're talking about is not looking at soybean meal as a protein content, because that's not the animal's requirement is not based on protein. In the diet formulation software that we use, and we'll show you a picture of here in a minute, I don't even have a protein specification on the formula. So again, buying and selling the ingredient really needs to be around the essential amino acids that the pig or the bird or really any species requires. So I want to use this just as a quick pictorial of maybe what could be thought of as old formulation and then more improved formulation by looking at individual amino acids. The level of water in this barrel I'm depicting is we can look at as feed efficiency, daily gain, milk production, whatever production parameter we want to think about. In this case, we have a limiting amino acid, methionine, that will only allow that level of performance. The other amino acids are in excess, but again, because one of the amino acids is not there, we don't achieve that next level of performance. If we consider all of the amino acids and add only methionine, our level of performance increases. And so again, the specific piece of this is that we need to be considering the amount of each of the amino acids and the digestibility of that amino acid. I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of diet formulation software, because that also fits into, we used to think about protein requirements of pigs and birds on the basis of protein, but things evolve over time, and we've learned over time. So it's important to consider when I was back at Iowa State University and going through in 1978, my undergraduate nutrition work, there was, any of you that have been through animal science or whatever would recognize the Pearson square as a algebraic method for calculating, doing some simple diet formulation. Well, today we use computers, and of course millions of calculations per second can be done considering prices of multiple ingredients with multiple nutrient content. We use the Dalex program, but there's Brill, there's format, many methods or formulation packages that can be used. The other thing that we will think about here is the degree of nutrition accuracy and how that's evolved over time. So again, we go back to crude protein being used as a kind of a rough estimate of what the animal's requirement is, but over time, the improvement in the accuracy has taken us to a point where we're considering each of the individual amino acids and their digestibility, which is quite an improvement and a change over time in the understanding of the animal requirement. So in summary of that quick amino acid discussion, understanding the nutrient requirement of the animal is the first part of the nutritionist's job. And secondly, the nutrient content of the nutrient source, whether it be soybean meal, BDGS, or whatever, again, particular ingredient we're studying. So this is a screenshot, and I understand there's probably isn't visible throughout all of the room, but this is of the formulation package that we use. For those of you that can see it, this is the ingredients that are offered to this particular formula: corn, soybean meal, a calcium source, some of the individual amino acids are listed here, their prices that are going to be used, and then the amount in this particular formula. Over on this side are the diet specifications, and in this case it's a broiler diet that we're looking at with a digestible lysine content of 1.19%. So the process that we used was to take each one of these soybean meal samples and submit them to diet formulation to compare the use of each soybean meal at different amino acid content as it was defined through these 40,000 samples that we had. We used NIR analysis for the amino acid analysis. The two numbers that I'd like you to kind of remember on this slide, and I'm going to go on to the next one, that will really help you understand the point of the differences in amino acid quality and differences of soybean meal are. First of all, this particular soybean meal, we're using about 225 kilos of soybean meal. The cost of this diet is $179 per short ton. Now I'm going to fast forward here to the next slide, and this amino acid, or the amino acid content of this soybean meal now in this diet formulation, we're using just over 300 kilos of soybean meal, still balancing to the same lysine content, and the diet cost now has increased to $191. So we have about a $12 a ton difference in cost. We're still using soybean meal. We're balancing the diet to the same level of performance for the broiler in this case, and we're using about 75 kilos less of soybean meal. So amino acid differences in the meal really drive the use of the meal and the valuation. This, in this project, we had some, again, as John described, a statistician involved in helping crunch the numbers. And part of the project then was to take these samples and the valuation and make put them on a score of 1 to 10. So this can be fed back to the farmer, saying your quality is here based on this diet formulation software on a score of 1 to 10. This gives you a little bit of an idea of, again, looking at the range of samples, in this case of the 40,000. This is just the very top end. But the value of soybean meal to a broiler, $351.83 here. And as you can see, as you go down in these samples, we get down to one that's $348. So becomes a spread of about $70 a ton in soybean meal value that's differentiated by the amino acid content. The method that was used after doing some of the diet formulation work, and again, the fun that I've had in this project of having a PhD statistician crunching the numbers, was a model now has been created to be able to very accurately predict the value of either the value of soybean meal, the value of a bird being fed, the value of a pig being fed. And in this case, you can see with very high R-squares of 98, 99%, the predictability of the model, and then some subsamples that were compared to that model just to show the fit. So again, a very strong fit to the model. Okay, give it back to John.
Thanks, Bert. So now that we've got the science done, the question is, how do we put this work to use? How do we use it to advance the success of U.S. farmers and the success of their customers? And one of the ways that we do that, after we've taken these whole soybeans and converted them into meal, now we can also identify exactly where the highest value soybeans are down to the individual farmer level. And this shows you a map of the United States, or a section of the United States, where you can see the soybeans that are scoring 7, 8, 9, or 10. These are the highest value soybeans in the United States. These reflect the U.S. commitment to maximum soybean value. And here's what we're doing about it to communicate it to farmers and to their customers. We have a new website that's live today. It's called soyvalue.com. And this website is the first ever website that makes comparisons down to the sample level for farmers to be able to see how their variety selection drives end user value, making the information very clear and very local. What we did as a nutrition and statistical team is we looked at the individual value of the sample for swine growing and finishing, for lactation swine, for breeder pigs. We also looked at broilers and layers. And so we've got these value reports now that farmers are going to be going to the website today to find out how much value their individual samples have. They're also going to get certificates of excellence that recognize their success. These are the first steps to connect personal seed selection decisions and U.S. success, starting with the variety level selections that farmers make and driving that decision back to the seed companies, because ultimately U.S. seed companies have a lot of power over the decisions that are made about varieties. This tracks and reports on sample value for multiple years, and it also, and this is key, this is a program that we're using to encourage seed companies and growers to select and now to deliver the highest possible value soybeans into the marketplace today. Now, one of the surprising things that we discovered as a result of this program, I mentioned earlier that we were historically, the marketplace looks at soybean value after all the farmers have mixed their soybeans into boxcars and Panamaxes and other vessels. After that soybean, after all those soybeans blend together, it really hides a lot of value. And what we found is, of course, protein brings higher value for processors, but what we found is that there's more to the story than just protein. And there are a number of states up north especially that have been onto this story for years. There's a lot of work that's been done by the four or five northern states in the United States that show that amino acid value is the way to go, and we've proven that they were right. Scientists have found a very weak correlation, a very weak relationship between whole soybean protein above 35% and 19% oil. You can see that based on 13,000 samples from replicated plot data, the R-squared between protein and whole soybeans and the end user value of soybeans is only about 50%. And it gets a little bit more dicey when you look at traditional targets for processing soybeans. We've traditionally looked for soybeans in excess of 35% protein and 19% oil. When we look at the R-squared between soybeans that reach those standards and end user value, the R-squared drops to about 0.13. So this shows that we're missing a significant amount of value by focusing strictly on protein, and that the way to go is to look at soybean samples at the variety level and the sample level and looking at those specific amino acids. There are two in particular that we found that drive an extreme amount of value. Those are isoleucine and valine, and the reason those drive so much value is because synthetic amino acids to replace those two nutrients are very expensive. So U.S. soybeans that are high in those two amino acids are especially valuable to end users, no matter what it is they're producing. So we've also are pleased today to announce the beginning of a test program to demonstrate the value and the commitment of the U.S. soybean industry to the end users throughout the world. What we're able to do now as a result of this research is to identify the absolute best soybeans from the 2017 harvest and the harvest that's coming. We can now know which farmers we're going to be able to know based on which varieties are planted, which samples are going to deliver the most value in the marketplace over time. So here's how the process works. We identify the best soybeans. We can locate container terminals in multiple states that are near those soybeans that I showed on that previous map. We're already starting to work with seed companies to identify the farmers that are growing the highest value soybeans throughout the United States. The recruiting is already starting today on this website that you can visit right now. It's soyvalue.com. It's a place where we're going to start a test program today to connect soybean farmers and buyers. And the key first step with this program is to connect those two together, but also to showcase shared quality and value success. We understand that farmers and end users have a shared commitment to soybeans having the maximum value possible, and we're dedicated to starting with that today. So we invite you to go to soyvalue.com. If you're interested in signing up for this test program, you can register there today, and we'd be grateful for the opportunity to work with you. So in conclusion, what we found through this program is that protein pricing hides a tremendous amount of customer value at the end user level. Value starts with variety selection in the United States, and there are a number of farmers that are very committed to that. Amino acids drive the value of soybeans along with oil. I'm here to tell you today that U.S. soybean farmers are active in encouraging U.S. seed companies to expand their focus on varieties that deliver the maximum value in the marketplace. We believe that those seed companies can unleash a tremendous amount of untapped power, and we're beginning to explore, as I mentioned earlier, introducing buyers and sellers through this soyvalue.com website. There's a registration area where you can register to receive these high-value soybeans, and so we're inviting people to join us today and sign up for this test program on soyvalue.com. So we'll end that with thanking you for your time and kind attention, and we'll look forward to answering any questions in a few minutes when we get into this panel discussion. Thank you all very much for your time.